Great. Good morning.
Morning.
Did you have a good weekend?
Good, always.
Always? St. Patrick's Day? Anything going on that day or nothing in particular?
No, just did brunch with friends.
Just working on it?
That's it.
Did you do any work?
Of course.
Okay. Exactly.
Of course.
It never ends.
Yes.
So please tell us who you are, what your company is, what service you were in, and then where we are.
Okay. Well, I'll start off with I am Dr. Oberholtzer, Brent Oberholtzer, consulting psychologist, which we'll get to that in a little while. What on earth is a consulting psychologist? Because many people are confused by that, obviously. The company is Org-ology, the study of organizations, much as psychology or neurology, it's the study of something. So the study of organizations. I'm retired from the U.S. Army, kind of a change in career many years ago. Because I was in the infantry, the cavalry, special forces, ranger, and now I'm a psychologist. So, yeah, kind of quite a shift.
One spectrum to the next.
Yes.
Very interesting. So I like to rewind kind of to the beginning and just know what your inspiration was for joining, and then like if you could just go into me like how you look back on your service as a whole, whether it was fulfilling, not fulfilling. I know there's always high highs and low lows, but what made you join, and then how was your service? How do you look back on it?
I joined in '83, and why I joined is I had an undergraduate degree in cultural anthropology from USC. Which with
USC?
Yeah, USC.
We're Trojan brothers.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Excellent. All right.
Good.
Fight on.
Yes.
All right.
So having an undergraduate degree in the early 80s really wasn't going to get you a job because the economy was not all that great. And I come from a long line of military service members, enlisted. So I decided I'll join for a couple years. It'll be fun. I'll do what everybody else in my family's done. Let's spend a couple years. Ended up loving it and stayed retired at 18 because of medical disability, multiple reasons. 2 Purple Hearts from friendly fire. I'm a different generation than the newer generation because I retired in 2000. I got retired, good and bad. There's a lot of guilt when I retired because everyone after 9/11, all my buddies were headed back into Afghanistan and Iraq, which I had been in multiple times for different reasons. So there's a bit of guilt there. At the same time, I was in a doctorate program, so I knew I was focusing on a new career.
Let me ask a little bit. That's very interesting. So you're getting out. What are the contrasts you see between your generation, so to speak, and ours? And I'm not even. There's not a right or wrong answer, obviously, but it's just completely different.
I think the differences that I see is that, yes, the services are not preparing people for the next life in the sense that the transition is not that much better, I don't feel, than when I went through, because basically I was told, here's your DD-214, goodbye, have a good day. I think the same thing is somewhat happening now. There is a little more preparedness happening. But I think what has actually changed is the motivation of people when they come out, that they know they need to move forward and do what they want to do in life, as opposed to my generation where I think people were like, well, you're supposed to take care of me when I'm done, which I realized very quickly was not necessarily the case, and it wasn't really where I wanted to be. I didn't want to just sit at home and be retired, and that just wasn't going to happen. It was interesting part of the reason I got into consulting psychology is part of the work that I did in the military. Because towards the end of my career, not to be sad storying or anything, but my first wife passed away very young at age 30. So while I was still in Special Forces in 3rd Group, I ended up with a 5, 9, and 11-year-old because she had passed away. So then the Army in their infinite wisdom said, well, we're going to give you a different job. We're going to make you a drill sergeant so you can be home with your kids, which is completely not appropriate. And it doesn't actually help much. But luckily I had a big military community to help me through that. And the kids turned out okay, believe it or not. Even though their dad was a drill sergeant. And it was strange because in the infinite wisdom of the Army, they made me a drill sergeant as an E7 was promotable within 4 months. You can't be a drill sergeant as an aide. So then I went back to teach at the schoolhouse, and then actually ended up being the commandant of the NCO Academy at some point, many years later. Okay. So I stayed in one place for about 4.5 years, almost 5 years, which was,
where was that?
Unknown, Fort Leonard Wood.
Okay,
which
Missouri,
was,
right?
Yeah, which was completely unknown to me, because it was like every 3 months I'd be going somewhere different in my career, and then staying in one place. So it kind of helped a bit. But part of that was the whole time that was happening, the Aberdeen Proving Ground issue was happening, where drill sergeants were having sex with trainees, physically and verbally abusing them. The same thing was happening at Fort Leonard Wood. I ended up getting wrapped up in that study and doing the actual study of the abuse and the cause and the effect of physical, verbal, and sexual abuse, and ended up testifying in front of Congress twice about what Fort Leonard Wood was doing to solve the problems.
Got it.
And that's very much what we do today in my practice, is around culture and how things happen.
So yeah, let's get right into it. So is that a direct byproduct, like this journey, your organization, is it a direct byproduct of kind of what happened at the end of your career?
I think my career field, my career choices are absolutely driven by what I learned and what I didn't learn. Because I had an idea what to do, but had no idea why I was doing it. Which is why I went back and got the doctorate, so I could actually know why I was doing what I was doing to solve problems. That was a big player in what I do today. When I graduated and I was actually presenting in Paris at a conference on organizational psychology, a gentleman came up to me and said, "I want you to work for me." And I said, I had no idea who he was. And it was Secretary John Snow of the Treasury. And he said, "I want you to come work for me, and you're going to come work for me." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll talk to you. I have no idea who you are." So I had no idea who he was. But then he talked to me about what they were doing in Treasury and all the challenges that they were having within the Treasury Department, because the Treasury Department's 115,000 people. The IRS is included in there. They make, they print money, they coin money. They also have chemists that actually test wine to make sure it's the right vintage for the taxation, which is a job I always wanted, though they don't get to drink. So it was interesting. So when I graduated, I automatically got pulled in to the Department of Treasury. At the same time, the whole thing was melting down because of the housing crisis. I ended up in that, dealing a lot with policy and other things, putting that together. But out of that came the business.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. Well, you said at the beginning, what is consulting psychology?
Yes,
please define that for us.
Yes, a consulting psychologist, it's Division 13, the unlucky division of the American Psychological Association. And what consulting psychologists do that is different than institutional or organizational psychologists or clinical psychologists, we're all trained as clinical psychologists. But what we do is we focus on the organization and the functioning within an organization. An IO psychologist, which is an institutional organizational psychologist, looks at particular areas within the organization, usually the hiring and the motivation, the people side. We look at the people, the process, and the technology, and how those three have to work together in unison. Because you can have a great organization that has great people and great processes, but if it doesn't have technology to support it, it's an immature organization.
Now, sorry to interrupt, and I interrupt a lot, but technology in what form? As like the applicant tracking system, or technology for payroll? Like,
it can be any technology, because every organization is made up of three stool legs: people, processes that support what they're doing, and the technology that supports the processes and the people. So it's kind of a combination of the three, because you can have great people and great technology, but if you don't have any processes to support it, then you have an organization that's somewhat dysfunctional. Same thing, you can have great technology and great processes, but if you can't keep people in your organization, then you're always fighting the hiring monster. So it's getting the balance of those three, and one of the things that we see, one of the biggest challenges we see in organizations is the speed of change and the disruption that's happening in every part of society and every part of every organization. As Org-ology, we're one of 6 organizations that is globally certified to train organizational design consultants. We actually are licensed and certified to train people on organization design.
Wow.
That's not moving the boxes and the lines, that's actually designing their organization to be prepared for the future.
Are these mature organizations, or are they startups as well?
We do a variety of organizations. We do global Fortune 100. We've spent a year working with an organization on a reorganization project and traveled between Asia and Europe. The whole year we were all over the place. Recently we were working with a global hospitality organization that has high-priced hotels all over the world, from Serbia to into Croatia and then down in the Caribbean and over in Asia, and they're just a very high. And we work with startups, and we also work with nonprofits.
So what have you learned about this as you've taken it on? And what I mean is there something common you've seen across organizations that need your assistance, or what Org-ology could do for them? What are some of the fundamental patterns that you see?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're trying to do as Org-ology is we're trying to change and disrupt the consulting model. As opposed to the big 5, when they come in with a group of people to look at your problem, analyze your problem, and spend a lot of your money trying to come to a solution for you to execute. In Org-ology, what we do is we go in a small group, we work with the organization, we start to understand it, and we craft solutions that can actually solve problems. And that's one of the reasons we have so many repeat clients. They call us back because one of the things we do believe in is transferring knowledge. Our knowledge needs to be transferred to the organization so they can sustain what they're doing and what we've helped them do. And many clients say, well, doesn't that work you out of work? And we're like, yes, in that particular engagement, we no longer are needed because we've transferred the knowledge so that they can accomplish the tasks themselves. But they'll always call you for more help.
Yeah.
When you do it that way.
I think that's like the customer life expectancy is enormous there, because I truly believe that you shouldn't hoard knowledge, right? Like if you go in and solve the problem for them, you probably in the back of your mind, and I could be speculating, know that a couple other things are going to arise, and then you could come by, you come back and be like, all right, we'll clean house again, and then we'll figure it out for you. But it seems like you're giving them the tools and the ability to solve these problems themselves. Yes. But as they evolve, you could be needed again, and that's a great feeling to know, like, they're in my corner.
Yeah, so. And when I talk with Deloitte or Booz Allen or Boston Consulting about this, they're like, that's crazy, you can't do this. You can't just be giving your knowledge away and helping them solve their own problems. And I'm like, why can I not do that? And actually many clients have, because when you think about an organization, especially if you're not a global organization, if you're a fairly small or mid-sized organization, you pay for certain services. You pay for your attorney. On an hourly rate, you ask your attorney to solve problems for you. The same thing with an accountant, an actuary. You don't usually have one on staff. You usually hire someone to come in and check and balance your books and do the right thing. Yeah. The same thing with consulting. Why should the small and medium-sized business not be able to call someone and say, I need some help. I don't need you to live here. I need you to come look at the problem I have, help me find a solution, and teach me how to solve it.
Yes.
And there will be other problems.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's. I'm not from the consulting world, but I always kind of felt like it's invasive. But if you come in and you teach me, and I now fundamentally have a better understanding of my business, yes, and am able to execute, then that's a win-win. And I will never forget you. That you're not going to be just someone who came in and out. But so where can we find you online? And is there anything in particular that you'd like us to visit or see?
No, org-ology.com, ORG-OLOGY, okay. Or you can just type in Org-ology because it's a unique name, and pretty much we are the only ones on the web. And you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I have to catch them all.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're all there. And one of the things, we have two primary practices, and then we have a couple sub-practices. Our primary practice is organization design, helping organizations design themselves for the future. Can you build an organization that's adaptable to change and agile? And yes, you can, if it's done correctly. You look at and align the organization to the actual strategy and what you want to achieve. Not just a bunch of boxes lined up so it looks like a pyramid, or that it's flat and you pick one and you want to play with it. So many times we're called into organizations where some leader sat on the back of a napkin, drew the organization, told HR do this, and the whole thing fell apart. And they're like, we need help. We need to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Like, well, we're your people and we can do that. Our other primary practice is organizational development, which is the people, the process, and the technology alignment, putting everything together. And we do leadership and coaching and other things, not as prevalent, but until we get those two practices up to the size we need them to be, we always have other things that we're doing underneath.
Last couple questions are about Veterans and Residents program. How did you hear about it, and how has it been since you've started?
Yeah, I heard about it actually about a year and a half ago.
Nice.
I applied to the last session. They were already full and I was late getting to the party.
New York has got to be tough.
Yeah, it's quite competitive. And then I was working with a gentleman that was in the last cohort, helping him kind of build his business and define his future. And they said, you got to apply. You need to be with these people. These people are great. I was like, okay, I'll apply again. So far it's been very good. It's good to see other people that are doing things that are having challenges also. Because being an independent consultant or being a business owner, there are ups and downs, ebbs and flows. That bank account, you can just watch it go up and down, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe
I literally just posted that. I bounced 2 payments, and I was like, this is part of the process.
Yeah, I can't believe we're in this predicament again, and then 2 months later you have $40,000 sitting in the bank, and you're like, oh my God, how did we get from where we were to where we are, and we can't keep it consistent? And that's one of the challenges I think everybody suffers through, is that ebb and flow. And coming out of the military, we're very used to that once or twice a month, that paycheck shows up, bills are paid, very consistent. And then when you walk away from that, and that inconsistency is one of the things that most people give up. And that's one of the primary reasons small business and entrepreneurs give up, is because they are not ready or prepared for that ebb and flow of funds coming and going.
Yeah, so there's the financial aspect, and then there's the aspect, in my opinion, that enduring failure, especially if you had a successful military career, you're going to endure failure early and often. But I think this actually is building my leadership toolbox even more, and I thought I had it all figured out. I've been at corporate, had a successful career, but now I'm just like, this is far different, and my patience is at an all-time high, and I kind of understand it. And then how about WeWork? How's the space been and everything like that?
Yeah, well, being WeWork is nice. It is a good area. I think being in Midtown is probably not the ideal space. It's a space they have, which is great. I think a lot of people come in and commute from the boroughs, and could there be, because there's so many WeWorks in New York, every other building is a WeWorks building somewhere. Could it be moved somewhere else where it's more logistically better for the cohort? Possibly, but I don't think that's really much of an issue, because we are right smack in the middle of everything here. One of our clients was Estee Lauder, which was right down the street.
Awesome.
We get around the city. We live in the city, so it's easier. But many people don't live in the city. They live in the boroughs, and it's a little more challenging, I suspect.
I get it. So mine's in D.C., and I'm an hour away. And
where are you living in D.C.?
No, it's in D.C.
Where are you?
I'm in Leesburg.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like about an hour. But I'm like, I signed up for this, but just the parking is drives me nuts. So I just get there at 6 a.m. and then I don't have.
We left DC 4 years ago. The practice was there.
Oh, nice.
We were doing it there. 4 years ago, we decided to pick up and leave because we're getting the same clients and the same projects over and over again, and we realized we need to get more international and commercial clients. We need that practice.
I'm with you.
So we came up here to New York. My business partner stayed in New York. I ended up going to Iraq, working with the Iraq government for a year on their restructuring, and then came back. So yeah,
Okay.
it's been a busy couple of years.
You know how funny it is for me to like listen to that, and I'm like, yeah, I have these cameras and I interview people, and you're going to Iraq to work with the government,
Yeah.
and I mean, like that's.
Well, currently
that's just
we
so
have a
fun.
bid with the Saudi Arabian government to do some organization design work with the Saudis.
My very last thing is, do you have a message for transitioning veterans, not necessarily entrepreneurs, but just transitioning veterans or service members, anything you'd like to impart on them?
I think the biggest thing I can tell people that are coming out and wanting to start on their own is ask for help. Seek help. There is help out there. We've helped a lot of veteran businesses stand up and work. There are a lot of resources available to you. We're not used to asking for help coming out of the military. That's not one of our strengths, is say, hey, somebody please help me out with this, because we are told that we're in charge and we can solve all our own problems. But you have to ask for help. And I've done it. I've done it so many times. I've reached out to people in corporate America and said, I just want to talk to you. I want to throw my ideal at you. And then I end up actually working with them. Because, sitting with Pall Mall Colgate, you're sitting there with the CEO or one of his vice presidents or junior CEOs, and tell them about your products and your services and how you do things, when all you're doing is actually asking them, what do you feel about this? Would this work for you? And they're like, oh my God, a pay-for-service consulting that actually gets something done? Yes, we want you. Show up.
I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, he's already told you where you can find them, Org-ology, so thanks so much for your time.
All right. Thank you, sir.